into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. That's Megan. I'm Rudo. That is AJ. We are here. We're in Studio B. AJ's in Studio C, which is AKA Canada.
That's why we call it Studio C.
Yeah, exactly. Adds up, all right? Math works out sometimes like that. Obviously, the big news of yesterday, Ross Colton deciding to sign his contract 10 minutes after our podcast ended yesterday. So we get to talk about it on today's show. It's a $4x4 million. Some people would call that a David Jones money. Initial thoughts, Megan. I know yesterday none of us were really concerned about him having not signed yet. Now that you see the deal, how do you feel about it?
Well, I can't help but feel like it was a little bit rich because it's just not what I anticipated. The high end for what I was guessing was around 3.5. So it came in just a little higher than I expected. And with 4 years, that's decent term as well. So I thought one of those two things might have been smaller. But overall, and especially having time to think about it, I think because it's 4 years especially, I feel good about it because I think it's a contract that he's meant to grow into in a way. I think they have this idea in mind for what the high-end upside is for Ross Colton that they're hoping he can reach in years 2, 3, 4. And that being said, I would even draw a comparison to Carter Verhaeghe out of Florida. And that's a bit bold at the moment. I think this is where he could grow into it, really comes into play. But both of these players, their projection was similar. And then with more opportunity, Verhaeghe, it just became prolific for him in Florida and with the heightened opportunity as well. And it's given me then pause, and I've reflected on what Ross Colton's role in Colorado is then going to be. And that's where I'm expecting it to actually be something of an upgrade and a promotion. I think they plan to use him above a third line capacity in the near future. I think that's part of his plan and why that price point comes in at the $4 million AAV the way that it did. And I think that's why I think that's where they're going with it. And if there is Carter Verhaeghe upside in Ross Colton, then it's excellent. And I think that it could be there. I think this is a team that has scouted players that they want on this team, that they see a fit for pretty well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the hope for Ross Colton. Even though I think in this first year, there's going to be some growing pains and maybe some immediate reactions that find it to be a little high, I think we'll feel better about it in year 2 and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is high. I don't think there's any argument around that based on what you have to go on from his career. But I do think, look, the Avs, certainly professional scouting has earned the benefit of the doubt here. And I'm willing to trust how they have gauged this and what they reasonably expect out of Ross Colton in Colorado. But AJ, you haven't been on in a bit. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think I agree with most everything that Megan said, especially the Carter Verhaeghe call out, which if you look at what Carter Verhaeghe had done immediately prior to getting paid $4 million, it wasn't very much. Ross Colton actually has a more extensive track record than what Verhaeghe had done at the time. But he's not the only one. You also look at what Lawson Krause has produced in the contract that he signed. And every Avs fan under the sun has been tweeting at us for the last 12 months or so for the Avs to trade for Lawson Krause. Anthony Beauvillier is another guy that has a $4 million contract and only just had his first ever 40-point season in which he had 40 points. So I do think that it's you look at it and you say the combination of them, given what he's done, is it maybe a little bit high? Yeah. Do you feel like there's a good chance that he's going to be able to live up to it? Just given that the time on ice is so likely to go up in Colorado. I mean, you're talking about he averaged 12:21 of ice time last year. Like that's like Alex Newhook's ice time. Like I have a hard time believing that they went out and got this guy and they're going to play him like that. I think he's probably going to get closer to the 14 or 15 minutes a night. And I think that we're going to see, because right now, especially right now, before we know kind of how they round out their roster, the real strength on this roster is in the forward core is really its top nine. Until we kind of know what's happening with that fourth line and how it ends up getting constructed.
Yeah.
I think that the general feeling yesterday of, yeah, that was a little more money than most all of us were expecting, but not so much more that you're looking at it saying, oh my god, like what is this? But it does raise the bar of expectation for him to say, okay, he needs to have a little better year than the one that he just had in Tampa Bay. It needs to be just a little bit better than that. It needs to be a little more productive than that. And I think the Avs have in mind a bigger role for him than what he had in Tampa Bay, and certainly a more consistent role. And I think that they also paid a little bit of money saying, hey, we think you're going to be a guy for us.
I'm curious about a couple of things here. One, what does a bump in production look like for Ross Colton? Because this is a goal scorer. He had 22 goals his first year in Tampa Bay. Goal scoring comes more or less a 1-to-1 ratio for him to his assists. Are we talking about a guy who with more ice time, with a bit of power play time, could push for a 30-goal season? Or is this hey, he's probably more like a 20-25 assists guy?
For a total of
like 40 to 45 points. Yeah, maybe best case scenario, he ends up on the second line and gets more than that, but I don't know how realistic that is.
I feel like it's pretty realistic just looking at JT Compher's last season, and with a little more opportunity, the spike in production. I also think it's a good perspective to hold in seeing what JT Compher was paid and then looking at what Ross Colton was paid, and a couple years younger. I think that is sort of where I can really live with this, and I don't think a 45-point season is outside the realm of possibility, just because I do anticipate a spike in production. I feel they are really looking to put the talent alongside Colton that is necessary to help activate that. And I think that even with JT Compher, a lot of the scoring, I think, came from some opportunities on the power play. Just, it's so prolific if he gets time on PP1, the way that JT Compher did at times.
Yep.
I think that it's going to be a natural bump there, but I think 5-on-5 production for Ross Colton is where we're seeing, all right, I think 20 goals is within reach for this player already. Then you account for a little bit of a bump on special teams with power play minutes, maybe elevated opportunity. I definitely think it's feasible.
Okay.
Yeah, I think any talk of 30 goals is probably putting the cart before the horse a bit there.
It's fair.
So I would say we should probably temper those expectations. But I would also say that Ross Colton's good enough. And look, I've been biased about this deal since the second it was made, as a big time Ross Colton fan. I think that there's a possibility that he is your Ryan Johansson 2C insurance and maybe your 2C replacement in 2 years. If things don't go well with Ryjo, then you look at Ross Colton maybe being the guy that jumps up there, and I think that it's a real possibility here that he's going to end up kind of like what Arturi Lehkonen is right now, where he signed his contract at $4.5 million, and you were like, yeah, I don't know, he was so good in that playoff run that none of us gave a shit when it happened. But just given his track record, we should have put him on that list of guys too. Guys that hadn't had the big offensive breakout when they signed for the deals that they did.
True.
And I think it would also be fair. Lekkonen's an interesting guy too, because it's also fair to say if he wasn't stapled next to Nathan MacKinnon, would he produce 50 points? Because I think the answer is no. But with a guy like Colton, you're looking at him and saying, okay, is he going to?
Can he drive play a little bit by himself? For sure?
Yeah. And can he be the middle guy on a second line if you need be with if Johansson and his injury issues continue to crop up. Could he be that second line center that they can run a little bit of offense through, that, next to a Nichushkin or a Rantanen, whatever combination of guys that they wanted to put there. I think I see so much upside here from a lot of different angles that I just feel like it's expensive on day one, but you probably could have said something similar for Devon Taves' deal when he signed it, where it was like 4.1. Is he really that guy? And then the Avs gave him opportunity he never had before, and he exploded.
Flourished, yeah.
And now he's going to double that money. He's going to double that money next year. I don't know if Ross Colton is. I don't know if he has quite that kind of upside. And if he is just a hard 3C for Colorado, I think that hurts the value of this deal. I know everybody's favorite argument is, yeah, but the cap is going up. And the cap is going up. But if you make that argument for every deal, eventually you're still losing value.
Yeah. An overpay is still an overpay, regardless
Yeah.
of the cap.
And if the other aspect of this is that if he does not stay at center, if he ends up becoming a wing and moving around, the value of this becomes very closely tied to, okay, now he has to score 25 goals.
Well, so that's the conversation I want to get into, because you kind of painted this picture of, hey, maybe a world where Ryan Johansson doesn't work out as 2C, Colton steps up. I can definitely see that. But what happens in a world where Ryjo is playing well? Do they consider moving Colton up to the wing? Do they try Ryjo on the wing with Colton as the 2C? Obviously this is going to depend on if someone in the top 6 is out, or maybe the Druin experiment doesn't work or whatever. Are we looking more and more towards Colton being a direct replacement for JT Compher?
Oh, I feel the versatility is in part why they were willing to part ways with both Rodriguez and Compher, because these were qualities they both brought to the table. Yeah. And Rodriguez, seeing the money he got in Florida, is actually so similar. It's like this must have been part of it, is they were hoping to sort of replenish some of those qualities of both those players in Ross Colton. And because of the pay and the term is why I think we are going to see that at points this season. He will get second line opportunity, and it might not even necessarily be brought about by injury. I think they just want to give him looks there and see what it's like.
Yeah, fair enough. The other side of this, and I really don't know what to expect on this. Are they going to try him on the PK? Are the Avs going to send it and just say, hey, you can win faceoffs. Let's see if you can do the rest of this?
That they should. I mean, right? Because right now, you look at the PK and you say between Lehkonen, between Nichushkin, Cogliano, and LOC, you've got PK forwards you like, but
none of
you
them can
also
win a
have
face-off, though.
You have 4 guys who are going to get their shit rocked in the face-off circle. So, and we've talked about face-offs, like those are ones you want to win. You want to win ones on penalty kills. You want to, hey, these are a free 20 to 30 seconds that you've just killed because you just won the face-off and cleared the puck. So you do. I would say, yeah, more than I would be willing to try Ryan Johansson. I would like to see if Ross Colton can handle a PK job, because that at the moment they don't have a guy that you can. Like you can run anybody out there to lose a face-off. If you're fine with that, you're fine with that. But if you want to at least give yourself a competitive opportunity to win it, then I think Colton is the guy that you're squarely looking at and saying, okay, we want to start every penalty kill with Ross Colton and Arturi Lehkonen. 1, 2, 3, go.
Sure. A little bit of stability in the lineup, I do think would help. And I think it's one of the question marks that is left, because AJ, you were talking about as the 4th line. Who are Colton's line mates going to be on the 3rd line? Yes, you can put LOC up there. Yes, you can put Cogliano up there. Personally, I'd like to see a little bit more skill around a guy, especially if you're asking him to be a 20-goal scorer for you. I don't know if Druin makes a ton of sense down there. We know the defense can be a liability, but can the Avs find a way to put a little bit more talent around Colton and avoid some of the complaints that we heard all too often when Newhook was there?
I think it's a necessary adjustment because I think overall production for the team, when you look outside of Ranton and McKinnon's last year, was down last year. And I think that's something they're looking to find a resurgence in, even in the third line capacity. And that's why LOC for that third line is maybe not what I'm quite sold on. It's just not his toolkit specifically, though. You'd like to see the finish. You are looking for something more reliable than to accompany Ross Colton and Miles Wood, because you do need somebody that has that finishing touch. And this was honestly why I think Newhook was demoted the times that he was, because he was supposed to be that and he was struggling with confidence. And so I think that's where they really need to find the supporting talent necessary, because it directly addresses a very real problem of last season.
Yeah, I do wonder. Wood, I think, obviously a little bit of less offensive upside than Colton, but another guy who leans a little bit more towards scoring goals. Just not sure how the Avs are going to end up balancing the lineup. So we'll see, I guess, is my conclusion there. The other side of this, the $4 million, they do still need to figure out what they're doing with Ben Meyers. Has this changed your thoughts at all on the Avs signing at least one more guy?
No, because I still think they need to. And honestly, in seeing them invest in Ross Colton and Miles Wood the way that they have, I have no doubt that they're then going to want to invest in whoever plays alongside these two. But it has limited what they're able to seek out at this time. And that's where maybe the conversation about it being set in stone by camp is opened again, that maybe there is opportunity in season to address this as well if the right fit just isn't there presently. But I don't think they're going to stop. I think they're going to look for the right person there.
Fair enough. AJ, same boat?
Yeah, I think one more, well, certainly one more contract, one more PTO, whatever.
Sure.
There are still guys, we've run through the list a bunch of times this summer already, but there are still some people that are out there on the market that you could have a conversation about, that you feel like these guys can help you. These guys can help you in a depth role and fit your identity and give you a little bit extra depth, so that if you do have a forward injury, you aren't immediately like, okay, well, Frederick Olofsson's on your second line. You don't, like, you want there to be some steps before you got to get into that world. You don't want to just like put yourself there and live in it.
Yeah, I do think it'll be interesting where they ultimately decide to go with it. And again, the ways they can solve this problem are multiple for sure. Even if they don't go out and target a free agent, a trade down the line is something that they could go out and do. How injuries play out, especially I think through the first couple of months of the season, will help set the roster a little bit more too. But I would like to see some solid support at that level, the third line level. And maybe it does end up being Jonathan Drouin. I don't know. Maybe the Avs have a construction where they expect Colton to do the heavy lifting of defensively on that line, and it works. But I think it's just one of the things I'm looking for the most when we start to get into training camp and things like that, of how exactly this is going to look as far as their depth forward options go. On that note, though, we are brought to you by the folks over at Pins and Aces. You can get your golf apparel officially the DNVR golf apparel through them. You can use the DNVR code over at pinsandaces.com and get 15% off your order. They've got all sorts of great stuff, whether it be the shirts, the pants, the cleats, the DNVR golf towel, which is amazingly awesome. They also got things like the liquor stick and the beer sleeve, so you can bring your alcohol onto the course right in your bag. Make life super easy and be the cool guy on the course, giving everyone all the alcohol. Making the golf round a little bit more fun for everybody. So check them out at pinsandaces.com today. Again, be sure to use that DNVR code to get 15% off your order. And then we're also brought to you by the folks over at Bet365. They are one of the OGs of betting. They've been doing it over in Europe for a while. They're here in Colorado now. So get signed up today with code DNVR365, and you can get up to $200 in free bets. All you got to do, make that new account, use the DNVR365 code over at bet365.com or download their app. Deposit a minimum of $10, and then you got to make a $1 bet, and they'll give you $200 in free bets to mess with. Part I liked about this is it's just $200 in free money. It's not like, oh, you get $25 bet that you have to use in this way. No, they just give you like, here's $200. Go do whatever you want with it. You can bet it all on a $1 million long shot if you want. Go for it.
I won a lot of money with a similar promotion because I just did first goal predictions, and I just picked a couple, and I picked Alex Newhook, and I won a lot of money.
There you go. So you can divvy up that money.
That's my recommendation.
Easy money. I would not recommend doing that for the Australian Ice Hockey League, though, which you can bet on at Bet365.
Harder.
Those games are a little bit harder to predict, I would say. Anyway, also actually another cool part. This is me nerding out for a second. Because they're European based, they have a lot more esports you can bet on. So I can go bet on some Counter-Strike, and then the stream is just right there on Bet365. I can just watch the tournament. It's great. Look, they're just really good at what they do. Highly recommend you get in on this one. They have tons of different boosts and bonuses as well. Their parlay bonus can get you up to 70% bonus odds. So go check it out today if you haven't done it yet. You must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Again, be sure to use that DNVR365 code with Bet365. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Do we have the graphics ready?
Hell yeah, we do.
Well, let's go.
Super producer.
On that note, it's time for the top 5 presented by Bet365. Since we've been talking about Ross Colton's deal, I figured our top 5 today would be the top 5 best contracts currently on the Colorado Avalanche. Starting with number 5, another depth forward, Logan O'Connor. Is the upside massive on this deal? No. But you have a guy who is costing you $1 million, providing you very consistent work in your bottom 6. It's really just one of the more cost-efficient deals that the Avs have in their lineup right now. And certainly from the team side, it was good business signing LOC to this deal. Number 4, we have... I'm certain I'm going to miss some, and y'all are going to be mad. But number 4, I have Alexander Georgiev. After that first year, it sure looks like the Avs have a rock-solid starter for under $4 million for the next 2 years. You feel pretty good about it. AJ's like, I'd put him at number 1.
No, I'd probably have him at 2.
Who just thumbs down the video? They felt Georgiev's contract is at number 1.
At 3... I put Cale Makar. I understand it's a lot of money. You're also paying arguably the best player at his position in the world under $10 million. So I think it's pretty tough to argue that one. Number 2, Devon Taves. Obviously, the current contract he's on is absurdly valuable for Colorado. He's outplayed it massively. You're paying a top 15, maybe top 10 defenseman in the game. Less than $5 million. And then at number 1, and people are going to be mad about this one, but that's okay, I put Jonathan Drouin. One, because I think this contract has the potential to be one of the best dollar value to point ratios in the NHL if things go well. And 2, if they don't go well, it essentially costs the Avs nothing because they got him on such a cheap deal that the contract is entirely variable if they want to. And that's why I think Drouin's contract is the best on the entire Avalanche. I'm open for debate if you guys want to disagree or if you guys are in for the wild take. But AJ looks upset about it.
No, dude. No, you have a top pairing defenseman making $4 million. You have a
number 2.
You have a top 10 goaltender making $3 million. Jonathan Drouin's deal is great. and I don't have a problem with it being on the list, but he is still entirely unproven, and there's a reason that he cost that amount of money. Like, Cale Makar is probably the only guy on this list that I'm like, yeah, he's where he should be.
Similarly.
That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. Did you know? I was curious. Did you know Cale Makar right now is the 9th highest paid defenseman?
Yeah, that's why he's on the list.
Yeah, I just think that that's hilarious because over the next few years he's going to end up like 15th or 16th or whatever, and it's going to be very funny. But no, that's Jonathan Drouin at 1 is ridiculous.
A couple things here. I ranted and I did have it 6 for the record, Brady. He was on this list until I changed it. My question is, how many points would it take?
I wanted to ask that, actually.
To get Jonathan Drouin in the number 1 spot? Is 60? 50?
I still don't know that it takes number 1. We're talking about goaltending too, and here's the perspective.
Okay, all right.
League-wide that I'm looking at. There are so many teams that would pay ridiculous money for subpar goaltending at this point and are anchored to some really horrific contracts. I mean, even just looking at Detroit taking a chance on Husso, that didn't age super well. And this was around the same time that the Avs were looking at that as I shouldn't say they were looking at it. I don't actually know that. But it's like that was an option on the goaltending market. And they took a big swing on Georgiev. And look how well that has paid off.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you could probably make an argument for it.
Megan's point here, Alexander Georgiev, the 32nd highest paid goalie in the league right now.
That's
and a top 10 statistic.
Actually, bananas.
Making less money than Chris Driedger.
Oof.
I think we could see Drouin with a 60-point season in the 3 spot.
At 60 points, you only have him at 3. Oh, God. All right. Just burn the list at that point, I guess.
No. It's just Devon Taves exists and Georgiev.
And I get the Devon Taves argument. I definitely think you can make an argument for him at number 1. I put him at 2 in part because this stops being a thing for Devon Taves next year.
I know. It's already sad.
He's getting paid.
Devon Taves, though, is the 4th highest paid defenseman on the Avs.
That's why I had him at 2.
He's a top 15 defenseman in the NHL, and he's the 4th highest paid guy at his own position on his own team. Whatever. You're wrong about this.
I like the fun though.
Well,
I can tell you did it for fun.
It was fun. I enjoyed myself with it. Again, that was the top 5 presented by Bet365. Go bet on Jonathan Drouin to have a 60-point season if you're a believer in Rudo. It's okay. I know none of you are. You can bet on...
I think Jesse would like this take.
I think he would like it. I don't know that he'd agree with it.
He wouldn't. Just to be contrarian.
Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Did we have anything else we wanted to talk about with Colton before we wrap up that conversation? See 2 people shaking heads. Okay.
I do think, as not about Colton, but Ben Meyers thing continues to be interesting to me because the last 2 guys that I can remember, and I'm probably wrong, I'm probably just forgetting some along the way, but the 2 guys that I specifically remember who were extended qualifying offers, did not sign qualifying offers, and ended up signing them much later in the offseason, both got traded that same year in AJ Greer and Shane Bowers. So I'm kind of curious, what the holdup here is. Is this an argument over AHL money? Is Ben Meyers bitch, why am I even talking about AHL money? I should be in the NHL. I'm curious, where this is going and what this might mean for their relationship. Not to poison that well and just get people going in there, but just looking at recent Avalanche history and just being kind of curious about it and being I do wonder where this goes because, Ben, this certainly wasn't Ben Meyers' plan when he signed in Colorado.
Yeah, and the thing is, Meyers has no leverage at all in this situation.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure, given that he hasn't signed, I'm sure if he was eligible, he would have elected arbitration if he could have. But
Good luck, man. 4 goals.
I was going to say, even that, like, statistically, I don't know that helps.
In weird ways.
The Avs have specific footage.
Yeah, Ben, they're going to be like, okay, so he scores in our 3rd game of the season, and then he scores 3 goals in the last 4 games of the season. Where were you in between, my guy?
And it's a bit of a situation where I don't know how to feel about it, like as far as the angles coming into it. Because on the one side, you have this. Ben Meyers has no leverage. He has nothing. Basically, the Avs can offer him a contract and say that take it or leave it. And his option to leave it is to either not play hockey or get an agreement to go to Europe or something. And on the other side of that, you have Ben Meyers, who actively chose to come to Colorado as a college free agent. Did he just overestimate his ability to make the lineup? Is this something not related to him wanting out of Colorado? I don't really know. Is there any insight there?
Not specific to Myers, other than I do think there is some amount of promises made, promises kept, and maybe just some wanting assurance for what opportunity lies ahead for him next season, especially with another influx of college free agents that were signed in this last year, with a few being forward prospects. It's like, I do wonder if I'm Ben Meyers, and I don't know, like with Sam Parenta taking off, I just wonder if Ben Meyers is feeling some type of way about the opportunity and wanting to get clarity on it. I'm not immediately jumping to any nefarious conclusions, but I do find it interesting because, like AJ mentioned, the minute I realized that he hadn't accepted the QO, like yesterday on the pod, I said, wait a minute, hasn't that day come and passed? I thought of Shane Bowers. And I knew how that story ended. Granted, there was a lot more that preceded it
For sure.
that was to take into account. So I'm not there in Shane Bowers territory with Ben Meyers, but I would have some concerns that I'd want alleviated if I was him.
Okay. Fair enough. I don't have an argument.
Ben Meyers was not just the top college free agent, but was considered like one of the best undrafted college free agents in a decade. Colorado getting him was a massive surprise around the NHL. Like he had upwards of 20 offers. Teams had been chasing him for multiple years, had offered him ELCs when he was still at Minnesota, and he kept turning it down. Like, I'm saying, like, this was not like you look at a guy, and this is not to denigrate the Sam Molinskis and the Andre Pavels and the Jason Polans of the world, but those guys probably had a handful of offers. You know, a bunch of teams might have been interested, might have talked to him, but when it came time to actually put an offer and throw a contract in front of them, those guys usually have a couple teams. You know, three to six teams that are
Ben
serious
Meyers had
about
32.
Ben Meyers had 70% of the NHL after him. Yeah. He was very, very highly sought after, and that's part of what made last year such a disappointment for him. But also, I do also look at we're talking about this this opening on the third line, and I'm just like, hey, I wonder if you throw him on the left wing and you throw Miles Wood on the right wing and you throw Ross Colton in the middle, is that your answer? And on paper, you look at it, just given what Ben Meyers did, and you say, well, that doesn't sound very good. Like, it seems like there's a lot of improvement from a Ben Meyers there, but I am holding out the possibility that Ben Meyers going into training camp. He's going to be one of my primary guys to watch because I think he has a ton on the line here. And I also think that he significantly outplayed the numbers that he produced last season. I think that he is. I think he was. 4 feet of collective good bounces away from having a 10-goal season and us not having a conversation like this at all. And that's where I'm like, I guess for me, I'm there isn't any good reason, but I'm buying Ben Meyers stock right now as that's a guy I'm keeping an eye on who I think process-wise did a whole lot of really good things. And every time he was down with the Eagles, he looked really good, and he looked like he was like, hey, this is one of their better forwards. And anyway, I don't mean to derail everything. I know we have a lot of other things to get to. I guess it's just been on my mind lately of Ben Meyers, and this whole QO thing continues to be interesting. I think he's like, hey, look, I didn't sign here to do this yo-yoing thing. I'm here to be on your NHL team. Put me on that team. I'm going to do something. So I think he should be on the NHL roster ahead of Frederick Olofsson for sure. But that's just me.
I feel that 100%.
I would agree, but we'll see how the Avs feel about it.
Yeah, Olofsson's loud.
Yeah, oh boy.
Well, the guy that Evan keeps talking about is Andre Pavel, and when what we saw at the at development camp in the game, what you saw, I kept telling Rudo, I was like, he looks like Anton Bleed to me, except he plays center. Like, he's big, he's physical, he forechecks, he attacks pucks, he does all these little things that Jared Bednar is absolutely going to love. But the second he actually gets hold of the puck, he completely falls apart.
He's no.
And so I'm like,
skills.
Yeah, it's straight up like I'm like, oh my god, it's Anton Bleed. I'm terrified of that guy right now. So hopefully he has a good training camp.
You did bring up that third line winger role, which will bring us to the top of my prospect pyramid that we're going to talk about here.
I'm so ready.
For the record, the whole point of a prospect pyramid is so I don't have to rank all these by number, so you guys don't get mad at me because I put Devon Taves at 2 and Georgiev at 4. I can just put them all in the same tier, and you guys can't yell at me, all right?
I do have one question.
Uh-huh.
Was there an age cutoff?
24 was most years we do 23, but because of Kovalenko and Malinsky, we kicked it up to 24, and also 15 NHL games or less.
It's Wyatt Ahmet.
Yeah, he does not
slander.
He does not make the cut.
This omission hurts me, but I understand.
I'm not saying he can't make the NHL. He just doesn't fit on this prospect pyramid.
No, that's fair though. 25 is that is an age
You're
of a man.
You're starting to get up there.
Yeah,
at that
it's the
point.
age of a man.
Yep.
The age of a man.
Well, Malinsky's turning 25 this month, so I was like, ooh, you barely made the cutoff, my boy.
Exactly. At the top, I put Nikolai Kovalenko. Look, I think of all the players I put in the second tier, you could probably make an argument for almost all of them to be the Avs' top prospect. But I'm taking Kovalenko at the top because his proximity to the NHL, in the sense of if he signs a contract, he will be in the NHL the next day. And the Avs don't really have a prospect that projects as a star in the NHL. They have a bunch of guys. Sure, you look at a Guyev, maybe even a Barons, a Ritchie. Maybe they project higher than a Kovalenko, but they're also a little bit further away from the NHL than Kovalenko. So this is why I have Kovalenko at the top. Obviously, as of April of this year, he will be off of the pyramid entirely, either because he's in the NHL or because he re-signed in Russia and is never coming over. So he won't be up there for very long, but we'll see how it goes.
I have a quick question about Kovalenko for the two of you. If he goes out and has like a 20-point season in the KHL, would you still sign him?
Yeah.
What was it? 20 points?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd be too tempted, if not, to just continue on in the KHL. And I think he has shown well enough prior to this hypothetical 20-point season to take a chance on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess context matters a little bit. You know, if he's playing 22 minutes a night and he only scores 20 points in 60 games, you're like, okay, what is going on?
Are there injuries?
Yeah.
And honestly, that's immediately where my mind would go, is that maybe he was playing through something. But yeah, I think he's built a pretty good body of work in the pro league over there.
And the thing with Kovalenko is like, yes, the production is great. It's fun to watch him be that guy in the KHL. But the reality of his role in North America, yeah, he needs to produce some. You're probably hoping he's a 30-point guy in the NHL. He's going to play a depth role for you, much more similar to what he did in his first few years in the KHL, of a guy who hunts pucks, gets in, runs into stuff, makes chaos happen, more than an elite producer. So, obviously, if things fall off a cliff, you have to look into it, but it's something I would be less worried about with Kovalenko for the most part. The second tier of this list, I kind of divided it right down the middle, because on the left, I have 3 guys in the AHL who I think are a little bit closer to that NHL role. In fact, I would not be surprised if all 3 of those guys got NHL games this year. And then on the right, I have some of the more higher end projected prospects in the Avs system. Obviously, everyone knows I love Gulyayev, but you still have Barons there. And then Cal Ritchie, as much as I don't like him, you could make the argument that he's the Avs' best forward prospect. So I guess I'm curious, on the left side, do you see any of these Avs graduating? And on the right side, what do the paths to the NHL look like?
Graduating full time? Are we looking at
let's say, do any of them get
NHL debut?
I'm expecting that. I'm saying, do any of them get 20 plus games in the NHL this year?
That's a little hard for me to imagine. One, because the Eagles have not resolved goaltending if the plan is for Eustace Annunen to be third string with the Avs in any capacity. So I think they're still counting on him being the starter. And hopefully something doesn't go grievously wrong with Francouz and Georgiev to warrant 20 games for Annunen. But for what it's worth, I think people have soured on him a little bit, and I don't think his decline, I'm putting it in quotes, from last season is really anything to get worried about. One, I don't think it was really a decline. I think it's very comparable to the year before, but with the added context that the Eagles had 53 players.
ECHL team playing defense.
Yeah, it was honestly really scary.
Yeah.
And so I actually think he did very well, all things considered, and seemed more confident and sure of himself. And the adjustment to North American ice felt evident. I felt like he had really shaken that part off from the year before and was so much more comfortable. So anyways, I'm still high on him, but I'm not sure I'm ready to say 20 games for Eustace.
Fair.
Similarly with Foodie, I think he showed really well in his 9 games, but I think that there are parts of his identity as a player, like what he would need to be in the Avs lineup, that he needs to do more consistently first before they would feel comfortable with 20 games.
Fair enough.
Linsky, I think, is in a similar place, but it's because I think they need reliability on the back end. I think they don't like to take lots of chances there, and I think that's why we see Brad Hunt coming back this year, and that is probably who they're going to feel more comfortable in that role. But I think Malinsky gets in games because I think they'll want to see how he shows at the NHL level. I just can't say 20.
If he shows well, maybe he gets to 20.
Maybe. So I still think they'll keep him around kind of a 7th man capacity, so
Sure.
he's still probably not getting in a lot of games. But I could see him making a case for that 7th man role.
Sometimes you got to be positive about these things.
I would love to. I am such a big Malinsky advocate. I want him to be in 82 games. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's too much.
Yeah, I think Sam Malinsky probably plays 20 games this year for the Avs.
I love that.
I think that he's the reason why they are not going out and trying to get another defenseman. I think that they're going to look in training camp and they're going to either say, "Yep, Sam Malinsky is what we're after," or they are going to farm the waiver wire in preseason and wait for the next Patrick Nemeth / Mark Barberio type to shake loose. But I think it's Sam Malinsky's job to lose, because I think that his showing with the Eagles, but also what we saw at Dev Camp, when they actually played the game and watching the way that he played, it was watching him live, kind of even in that setting, that extremely low pressure 4v4 setting. Felt the same. I got the same feeling watching him that I did watching Tanner Molendyke when we were watching kids leading up to the draft. He just feels like an Avs defenseman. What he does really well, the way that he reads the game, the way that he aggressively attacks in the neutral zone. the guy's just an Av. And I think that if his defense can hold up, and that if he can get through that part of things, if he can handle the his own zone, I think I think there's a good chance that he smokes 20 games and he plays 60 or whatever, and that he ends up being one of the surprise rookies of the NHL. I am so very excited for what he does well, and how it fits on Colorado's blue line. That and maybe this is just classic summer Kool-Aid drinking. When you're bored and you've got nothing to do, you can just talk yourself into shit happening. But I think Malinsky is legit. Like, I'm very excited about Sam Malinsky this year.
When I talk about promises made, promises kept, I think Malinsky is one that I don't want to say promises were made specifically, but I think his choice to come to Colorado compared to other organizations where the path to the NHL might have been more obvious is for a reason. And I think there's a lot of belief not only in himself, but from the organization. And I just want to echo what you're saying, AJ. I think that belief is not unfounded. The transition from college to pro play was so quick and pretty seamless. I think he has an actually good defensive foundation to work from. That's obviously the area to improve on most, because offensively is where he leaned on as a skill and a talent. His vision in the offensive zone was something that he has brought into his game in Colorado with the Eagles, and you saw it at work in the offensive zone. But I think he has good habits already there defensively, that I think this is an area he can take another step forward. And I already think he is a good skater, but I think he's working to get better so that he can match the speed and the pace even more so that Colorado likes to play. And this is all to make him the perfect prototype player that the Avs want from him.
All right. Well, put down the Kool-Aid, pick up some beer. Get yourself some Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR for the summer. They got tons of different summer beers: the Palisade Peach, the Mountain Beach Sour, the Strawberry Sky, always a classic. You can get your Breck Brew at your local liquor store anywhere in the 50 United States. Go check them out, breckbrew.com. Use the beer locator there to find it near you. And of course, if you're local, just come on down to the DNVR bar. We got 8 different kinds on tap here at the bar for you to try. Check them out. Go look at their merch at breckbrew.com too. They have a bunch of awesome stuff there. Also brought to you by the people over at Bacchus and Schenker. If you do pick up a beer, don't drive. But if you do have the unfortunate issue of running into someone who has done something like that, Bacchus and Schenker can get you what you deserve when you call 222-2222 today. If you've been in a car accident, even if it's a rideshare situation, maybe something happened with the bajillion scooters that are downtown in Denver now. Even if you're injured at work, Bacchus and Schenker can work for you. When you call them or go to coloradolaw.net, they'll give you a free consultation. And if they think you have a case, they'll take your case on for completely free. You pay nothing until you win your case with Bacchus and Schenker. So you really have nothing to lose at all. You might as well give them a call at the 2 number. They're very good at what they do. They've won over $1 billion for their clients. That's a billion with the B. That's more money than, that's like 100 times more money than I'm going to make. Probably like 1,000 times more money than I'm going to make in my lifetime. So it's a lot of money. Anyway.
It's hard to fathom how much money $1 billion truly is.
It's nonsense how much money that is. Check them out. 2 number, coloradolaw.net. Get what you deserve with Bacchus and Schenker. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, as we can bring back the pyramid. And I think we've talked plenty about Guyev and Richie. If you want my video on Guyev, you can find it on our YouTube channel, which like and subscribe, by the way. This year is a lot about just kind of taking the next step for guys like Richie, for guys like Barons, and honestly, the guys in the third tier as well. Ambrosio playing for a contract this year in the NCAA, and then you have 4 guys in the AHL in Olausson, Pavel, Poland, and Fairbrother, where I guess the question is, it's time to find out who they are at this next level. Can an Olausson become a consistent scorer in the AHL? Can Fairbrother get back to being a quality defenseman after his injuries? And then obviously Pavel and Poland being college free agents, how do they look at the pro level with a little bit of consistent ice time? Realistically, what are the paths for these guys to the NHL? Can we see any of them this year, or is this more of a 2 years down the road, this is when we start seriously considering them?
That's a tough break for Oscar Olausson to be in that tier of player. And I'm not sure how to feel about it, because I feel similarly to Kyle Ritchie as I do Oscar Olausson. Like, Kyle Ritchie can go the Oscar Olausson path. It's really dependent on how his pro years show.
Definitely.
And I think it's still a little premature for Oscar Olausson even. I know maybe there's some fear that there's a stagnancy, just like even starting with his final year of juniors through now, that he just quite hasn't taken that next step. And there's some context for it too, with just this last season being such an unfortunate year of development for literally everyone involved, including Svampo Ranta, who's no longer here.
Yep.
But it affects Oscar Olausson in a similar way, and that's why I'm not prepared to, like, I would either move Oscar Olausson up a tier or put him in between a tier, but I'm not quite ready to put him in this group of players who are still, and honestly, Fairbrother might even like kind of be in the mixer.
Fairbrother's down here more because I just don't know what to expect.
That's totally fair. But like those two, I'm like, I don't know what to make of those two just yet, but Oscar Olausson especially, just because of everything that he's projected to be. And honestly, there has been slight improvement in his game. We talked about how he could get caught puck watching in his own end and how he became more of a hunter for pucks. And this was something he was more consistently implementing in his game that I'd like to see carry into next season. That I think his NHL debut was also cut short in a way, in part because I don't think he was playing quite at 100%, but also because of losing Evan Rodriguez. And so I think he's someone you can absolutely still expect to see get in NHL games, someone to be looking at in camp very keenly as well.
Fair enough. I definitely think, certainly with the ceiling, there's an argument to move him up a tier for sure. I do want to see how it develops this year, though.
It's a big year for Oscar Olausson.
And here's the part where I make everyone sad with the fourth tier. Because, hey, I think there's an argument that Jeremy Hansel and Taylor McCarr were the two best players at Dev Camp. I still struggle with the path to the NHL. In Hansel's case, it certainly looks like he's going to end up going back to juniors for his overage year. I'm not going to call it a lost year. There's value there. But as far as him progressing to the next step in his career, I just don't think there's a ton that you can take away as a viewer from his junior. Excuse me. From another year of juniors for him. I would really like to see what he can do at the pro level and then reassess from there. McCarr had a great camp. Okay, now he has to go prove it at the NCAA level, that he can be a legit guy down there, not just a third line depth option for a team like UMass. Steinberg, another weird one, because I just don't know what is going on with him. Are they going to sign him? Like, is he actually going to get to play with the Eagles this year? What's going on? I don't really know. And then you have some depth defensemen in Romain and Nishimnikov that I put in there because, hey, we'll see what they can do.
Is it because he's a great shot? I have no frame of reference for Ishnikov.
Look, he has pro experience. He played VHL, he played KHL. There has to be at least something there, right?
That's a fair call out. And I mean, how Romain shows at Providence in his freshman year is going to be important. Yeah. I actually thought he was pretty solid in Dev Camp too. Another one that I feel like, all right, there's a foundation there, but he needs to have a couple more tools to be a dynamic defenseman that he can still add. There's a lot of runway left to add that. But feeling really badly about Hansel in this tier just because of how much I liked him in Dev Camp, but the opportunity just isn't there. Like, it's such a steal for the Avs organization to be able to afford the luxury of like sending him to juniors for his overage year, but a little bummed about it still because I think he had a lot of pro polish already.
He was probably the hardest person for me to place on this list. He could easily be up a tier. He could easily end up down a tier. I just don't know how the Avs maximize him if they're going to send him back this year and then his role in the AHL how much clearer does it get next year? Does he even earn a contract? Like, there's just so many questions there for me. The player himself, based on dev camp, I'd have given him an ELC and stuck him in the AHL right away. And if the Avs had done that, he'd be up a tier for me. So, I don't know. AJ, I saw you shaking your head a lot over there.
Yeah, I mean, Shimnikov doesn't belong in that tier. He should be a rung lower. Very nice of you to put Andre Bujalski on this list at all. Very, very generous of you, sir. I do think I probably would swap Hansel with Ambrosio.
I think that's fair.
Just because Ambrosio's he's a senior who hasn't like made the big jump yet, and like looked good at times at dev camp. There were things to like. It was fine, but with Hansel, I think that there's excitement there, but it's also I think he could have a pretty quick path to the NHL. Kind of like in MLB when you draft a 4-year senior college pitcher, where you're like, you don't really need to spend a lot of time at these levels. You can go, you can be a quick path to the bigs. I think Hansel should be a quick path to the NHL. It's just with limited upside. I don't think there's a lot of ceiling there. I just think that his game is mature. He's already such a smart player. Even if he doesn't overachieve this year, I wonder if he is I wonder if like you could see an NHL debut from that guy next season in 2024-2025.
I think that's the perfect world. I also know that this is the Colorado Avalanche and have watched them draft overage Canadian juniors, leave them for an extra year in juniors, and then stick them in the ECHL, and then we never hear about them again. Yep. So.
Also, Sean Barron's signing will complicate that math and make that job even harder for him.
Yeah,
and if Sam Malinsky is legit, then Sam Malinsky is also in that math. So there are some things there that I think could present problems for him. I really like his game. I think he's good. One of the questions in chat, and he's asked a couple times, why is Bocage all the way down there? His best, Alex Bocage's best skill is scoring goals. And he has like 20 goals in 2 years, and he has 2 major injuries that he suffered.
Yeah.
Like it's just
the reality there is the injuries suck, but he doesn't get that development time back. That's just gone now.
No.
And he's been really limited in Loveland as it is. He's been a depth guy.
Yeah.
And the questions about can he play at pace at the pro level, they haven't really been answered in his favor at this point. So he's a guy with two AHL seasons under his belt, and I don't feel like he's anywhere.
If you want to put that on the Eagles for not giving him opportunity, fair enough. But the fact remains that he just hasn't had the opportunity here.
It's like he's in Shane Bowers territory in being confined to their bottom 6 and not really getting elevated opportunity above that very often. But some of that has been the Oscar Lawson, Ben Meyers, and then the Maltsev, Hudons of the world, the Kiefer Sherwoods, Dylan Sikras. Like it just, there's a balance that they've been trying to strike that I think came closer in this last year, but then injuries happened. And so he's made improvements. I know we talked in the last period about his skating. It is still not.
It's not
his
Avs.
Strength.
It's definitely not Avs level
but
skating.
But it is better. It is genuinely better, which is why I'm still bummed. Like he's still in this, but he's had 2 very serious injuries also in this, like the season and the season before that. So there's a lot of reason why he's there, but I am sympathetic for him.
Yeah, and like if you switch him into Shimnikov on this pyramid, do you feel any differently about him?
No.
Well, and like I think Bocage has shown better than Jason Polin, but that's just because I have limited body of work for that player. Kind of similar story with Steinberg as well. I honestly view Steinberg and Polin as like very equal in my eyes in terms of prospect and my expectation for them.
It's reasonably fair.
But
to build off this point that Megan is making, I think you could combine tiers 3 and 4, and I would be comfortable with that because I don't think there's a huge I don't think there's a huge separation in most of those guys. Like Gianni Fairbrother. I mean, I liked his dev camp, and I'm intrigued by him and everything. But I have absolutely no frame of reference. I have no idea where he fits into this puzzle.
Yeah, outside of Ambrosio, who's just a guy that I like, that I put up in third tier.
Will fight to keep him there. I'm fine with that.
But the other 4 dudes, the reason they're in the third tier and not the fourth tier is because all 4 of those guys are one step away from the NHL. They're all going to be in the AHL this year. If the Avs have another cataclysmic level of injury years, you will see these guys play NHL games. That's not the case with everyone in the fourth tier. It maybe Steinberg. There's just so many. Like, I just don't know what's going on with his contract.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, there's just a few more question marks for me about the guys in the fourth tier. Maybe the path to the NHL is a little bit longer. The fifth tier is kind of everybody else. I'm not saying these guys can't make it. Certainly, the new kid in Jedliška will just
very unknown.
See. Yeah. We'll see what happens there. The realities of guys like Bocage and Miner is, for whatever reasons, they haven't really had the opportunity to take steps forward. Is Buyalski even going to be in the NCAA next year again?
Yeah. What even happening is with the guy that does not go to dev camp is like, I don't even know. Like, are the Avs just like, fuck, we're good?
No thanks.
Yeah, like it's such a everything about Buyalski was weird from the moment he was drafted. It was like, this is like a 19-year-old out of a country that doesn't produce hockey players, and he's going to play college hockey at freaking Vermont, and then he had major injury, and I don't know. Everything about Buyalski has been so weird.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really liked watching him skate, though. He was a really explosive skater. I talk about him like he's dead, like in the past tense. I don't know what's going on with him at this point. It's a total mystery.
Yep. And then you have Zhigalov, also a bit weird, who went home. Allegedly, he's going to play in the KHL, maybe. I don't know.
Belarusian.
Yeah, it's super weird. And then Shamil Shmakov, who's definitely a very real person that exists, for sure.
No, this is just like the goalie tier, which is kind of unfortunate for Trent Meyer, who of these goalies, actually didn't even have a bad year with the Grizzlies. He just got sentenced to the Grizzlies for another season.
Yep.
Honestly, what blows my mind too is with the Keith Kincaid thing, who will no longer be an option for the Eagles moving forward. Can Trent Miner just back up Justus Annunen next year?
I mean, I'm down to try it.
They've got Arvid Holm.
Are you a believer?
Of Arvid Holm?
Yeah.
I would put him on the same caliber as Justus Annunen.
Okay.
They're pretty much the same. Fair enough. They're pretty much the same age, and they've been similar caliber of AHL starters. So I like Arvid Holm. So I think that I guess it's just the summer of me drinking Kool-Aid, man. I don't know. I just like him. I think he's solid.
You did like all of the Eagles moved. You liked Ashawn too, so.
Oh man, I love Jack Ashawn. I love Jack Ashawn.
Anyway, that's my prospect pyramid. Feel free to tell me how I'm wrong about everything, because I am. It's fine.
I do like that your second. I like that your second tier was split into guys that we can see this year, and then maybe their actual top 3 prospects that they're just not in pro hockey yet.
Yeah.
But you could make an argument for those being 1, 2, and 3 as your top prospects. So
I've seen a lot of Sean Barron's erasure, around communities talking about prospects for Avs, and I just would like to remind everyone that Sean Barron's exists.
He's good.
It's so weird, these things that happen in fan bases where a guy has a really good freshman year and everybody goes crazy. Should we sign him? Is he gonna make the team next year? Could he actually be the son of God? And then he doesn't sign after a sophomore year, and it's like, so what's wrong? Is he bad? And it's just like, whoa. These are just extremes that we are going to here, where I'm disappointed Sean Barons is not a pro right now, but go have a great year at DU, and then we'll see him at the end of the year.
Yep. Sometimes the math isn't that complicated. I'm good. Anything else you two want to add? No?
I'm good.
All right. Well, on that note, we are brought to you by Illegal Pete's. You can get your delicious burritos at 11 different locations here in Colorado. You can enjoy happy hour from 3 to 8 p.m. Is it going to rain again? I think it's supposed to rain again this week. I don't know. I give up on Colorado weather. Just when it's nice out. Yeah, you're either, well, I say it's either hot here, and then I look at Twitter, and it's like, yeah, it's 150 degrees in the Persian Gulf. And it's like, oh, okay, so people are dying. It's not my favorite time. But Illegal Pete's is good no matter the weather. So get yourself some delicious burritos. Enjoy some margs for their happy hour. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us on a Tuesday. Megan, it's you and Jesse tomorrow. Enjoy your show on Wednesday. AJ and I will be back Thursday. That's it. That's all I got. We're out of here. Talk to you on the next one.